Welcome to This Explainer. You know, we spend a lot of time worrying about the executive who is visibly falling apart, but honestly, the system usually catches them. Instead, I want you to worry about your absolute top performer, the one who hasn't dropped a single ball in 3 years, the one who smiles at every town hall, who completely over-delivers on every single metric you hand them, and who is privately, quietly suffocating. This is so critical because it takes down the very pillars of our organizations without any warning signs. So today, we are decoding the hidden, most expensive, silent crisis in leadership today, stealth burnout, or as it's also known, quiet cracking. And we'll be exploring this through the brilliant work and deeply inspiring journey of the mindset expert who identified it, Sohail Ahmed.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the silent leadership crisis, how to spot quiet cracking symptoms, the S.E.L.F recovery protocol, and how to defend your executive energy. Then we'll dive into Sohail Ahmed's truly inspiring personal journey before wrapping up with your immediate next steps.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the silent leadership crisis.
Think about the sheer contrast between putting on heavy armor versus projecting genuine, sustainable power. The quiet cracking trap is exactly like wearing fractured armor. It's all external strength, completely masking this deep internal fracture. This is what identity suffocation looks like. It is hidden resentment and the immense crushing pressure to keep it all together and never show a single moment of weakness to your team. Over time, that armor doesn't protect you, it traps you. On the flip side, we have the aligned leader shift. The heavy armor is gone, completely replaced by a glowing, sustainable power of internal clarity, energy protection, and deep authenticity. They aren't weighed down by expectation, they are guided by true direction.
So, what exactly is quiet cracking? Well, it's definitely not some dramatic, fiery breakdown. It's way more insidious than that. It's a slow erosion. Basically, it's high capacity operating without any internal conviction. You know that feeling when you're answering an email at 11 p.m.? Not because you're excited about the project or out of strategic necessity, but just out of a numb sense of sheer obligation? The output remains totally flawless, which is exactly why it's so incredibly deceptive, but the identity underneath fractures. You don't see a public collapse, you just see meaning fading into sheer routine. This is, at its core, a structural fatigue of the self.
Now check out this number, because this is the terrifying data that boardrooms are aggressively ignoring. 40%. Roughly 40% of stressed leaders are actively plotting their exit. And let's be clear, they aren't just looking for a lateral move to a competitor for a slightly better compensation package. No, they are looking to quit leadership entirely. When nearly half of your most capable operators want to abandon the game just to protect their own well-being, yeah, you don't have a talent retention problem. You have a massive structural self-leadership failure.
Which naturally brings us to Section 2, spotting quiet cracking symptoms.
So how did boards and peers completely miss this crisis? Because it absolutely doesn't show up in quarterly reviews or missed KPIs. You catch it in what we call behavioral drift. The leader who once built unstoppable momentum just slowly shrinks. First, you get delayed responses, not because they're too busy, but because the cognitive load of making literally one more choice feels unbearable. Then comes the acidic humor. Genuine, warm enthusiasm gets swapped out for sharp, defensive cynicism. You'll see creative paralysis, where they stop making bold, innovative bets and just play it incredibly safe to protect whatever tiny bit of energy they have left. Oh, and watch out for control hoarding. When a leader feels out of control on the inside, they start desperately grasping for certainty by micromanaging the external details. Eventually, everything becomes highly transactional. Deep coaching conversations vanish into flat operational exchanges. Nothing is technically broken, but absolutely nothing feels alive anymore either.
So, why do the absolute best of the best break down? Because they aren't just leading teams, they are managing reputations. They become the rock. But over time, being that unshakable rock turns into a cage. Here's the absolute kicker. People-pleasing in the C-suite is not kindness, it's fear dressed as virtue. Let me say that again. It is fear dressed as virtue. You end up absorbing the emotional weight of your entire division just to avoid conflict, totally mistaking that heavy burden for actual control. But your nervous system, it keeps the receipt, and quiet resentment builds up way before the exhaustion ever shows on your face.
All right, so how do we actually fix this? Let's move to Section 3, the S.E.L.F recovery protocol.
If you're feeling this, taking a long weekend or playing a round of golf isn't going to cut it. You need a structural correction. The first step in this method is S, separate role from identity. Listen, you are not your title. Identity suffocation happens when your entire self-worth is completely tethered to your corporate output. If your title vanished tomorrow, who are you? Sohail Ahmed strongly advises leaders to write down 3 core traits they had way before they ever took this job, and just intentionally reconnect with them. Identity expansion is literally the only real way to prevent identity suffocation.
Next up is E. Eliminate silent over-responsibility. You need to sit down, make a list of the emotional burdens you are carrying right now that don't actually belong to you, and drop at least one today. Seriously. Remember, delegation is not abandonment. It is the strategic redistribution of organizational oxygen. You absolutely have to let others breathe, so you can too. Then we have L, which stands for Limit Exposure to Emotional Drain. You have got to audit your calendar ruthlessly. Think about your schedule for tomorrow right now. Which of those meetings is purely draining maintenance? Which relationships take way more than they give? You simply cannot lead at scale if you leak energy at scale. Protect your emotional perimeter.
Finally, F. Fuel before you fix. High performers, they absolutely love solving complex problems for their companies, but they usually suck at restoring themselves. You need to treat your recovery blocks as non-negotiable capital investments. Schedule them exactly the way you would schedule a high-stakes board meeting. Energy is your ultimate currency. Spend it wisely and replenish it fiercely.
Now let's bring this into the real world with Section 4, Defending Your Executive Energy.
Because theory changes nothing, right? Execution is everything. So here are 3 daily habits you can install literally today to protect your boundaries. First, the 10-minute decompression rule. After your final high-stakes meeting of the day, do not immediately open your inbox. Walk, breathe, give yourself time to transition your nervous system out of defense mode before you carry that tension home. Second, the 2-decision limit. Never make more than 2 major strategic decisions in a state of deep emotional depletion. Why? Because fatigue totally and invisibly compromises your risk assessment architecture. And third, the honest conversation mandate. Once a week, speak an unedited truth. Tell a trusted peer or partner what you are actually thinking, because suppressed truth is the primary driver of quiet cracking.
Now I want to pivot to Section 5, Sohail Ahmed's inspiring journey.
To truly grasp the depth of this protocol, we really have to talk about the remarkable resilience of the man who created it. Sohail's life story is just its incredible testament to human grit and transformation. He experienced the sudden, tragic loss of his father right before his 12th grade exams. It was this heartbreaking, pivotal moment that forced him to confront immense grief and pressure way earlier than anyone should have to. He navigated through profound personal and career struggles, just grinding through grueling shifts in call centers, trying to find his footing. But instead of letting failure define him, he literally used it as fuel. Through sheer, undeniable resilience, he eventually founded 𝗲𝗏𝗏 Inc., transitioning into a highly sought-after self-esteem and mindset expert, and ultimately earning the prestigious title of LinkedIn Top Voice for both 2024 and 2025.
Today, his overarching mission is absolutely massive: to impact 1 billion lives and, as he says, make humans more humane. Practically speaking, in the corporate world, this means engineering environments where a person's well-being is actually viewed as a core performance metric, not just some nice-to-have perk. And by brilliantly bridging that gap between technical success and social responsibility, he's garnered incredible global recognition. We're talking top 50 emerging leaders by 𝗲𝘃𝗃𝗍, the 𝗃𝗵𝗄𝗎𝗓 Award, a Cambridge certificate for outstanding professional achievement, and a spot in Marquee Who's Who. He's out there teaching leaders worldwide that high self-esteem isn't just about feeling good on a Friday, it is the absolute core requirement for unlocking latent human potential. There's a quote from Sohail that perfectly captures all of this. Those who can do the invisible can do the impossible. And that invisible part? That is exactly what we've been talking about today. It's the internal alignment, the self-esteem, that quiet daily protection of your energy reserves. When you take the time to master that internal architecture that absolutely no one sees, that's when you achieve the impossible outward results that everyone applauds. And you do it without breaking yourself in the process.
Which brings us to our final section. Take your next steps. So, we've decoded the crisis, outlined the protocol, and seen the inspiring journey behind it. Now it's about your alignment. I want you to mentally strip away the applause, the fancy title, and the external validation just for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, are you leading or are you quietly cracking? If everything else was stripped away, would you still even want your role? Look, if you hesitate, do not panic. But please don't ignore that data either. High capacity without boundaries is highly efficient self-betrayal. The future truly belongs to the leaders who are the most internally aligned, not the ones who can just endure the most pain. Your title does not protect you. Your alignment does. Please, do not wait for a complete collapse to justify making a necessary correction. If the concepts in this explainer resonated with you, it is time to take some proactive action. I highly encourage you to subscribe to the Confidence Compass newsletter on LinkedIn. It's an absolutely incredible resource to help you master the inner game of high-performance leadership and draw continuous inspiration from Sohail's insights. Also, make sure you follow Sohail Ahmed directly at @mentorsohail for more incredible life transformational content. Seriously, it's a goldmine. And hey, if your organization needs a profound shift in mindset, culture, and resilience, don't hesitate. Invite Sohail Ahmed to speak at your next event. You won't regret it. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. If your external armor is the only thing holding you together right now, what happens when the battle finally ends and you're just left alone with yourself? Choose alignment today.